everybody, and welcome to the Power Poppy blog. I'm your hostess Allison for Inspire Me Monday. Today we're going to have some fun using some dark colors and some light colors, and we're going to use one of our new clear stamp sets called Vibrant Thanks. So let's get started on our, what I'm going to call Yin and Yang cards. Alright, so I have cut two identically sized panels. These ones just happen to be die cut, but you can and of course cut them with your trimmer. These are exactly A2 size cards, so they are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and basically it's a card base size. So let's get started. We're going to be doing some embossing today, so I've got my gold embossing powder. It's a fine detail gold to make sure that I get all the lovely detail of the Power Poppy stamp today. I've got my powder tool, and we're going to use the regular sized Misty in assisting us today. So first I am going to apply a dusting of our anti-static powder to both panels. This one happens to be a watercolor panel because we're going to do some watercoloring on it. So I guess we'll start with it first. So I've already got my Misty ready with our stamped images. I've already positioned them where I would like. And we're going to put our paper in. Holding it down, I'm just going to double check placement of my magnet. Actually, I think we'll see if we can fit it up there. There we go. All right. I'm going to use some Versamark ink. It's a sticky ink, and basically what it does is it allows your detailed embossing powder to stick to the stamped image and then stick to your paper. So I'm going to ink it up generously. All of my stamps, with the exception of the sentiment in the center, actually hang off the image, but I'm going to ink up the entire image just in case. The beauty of the Misty tool is that if you need to restamp it because you didn't get coverage the first time, no big deal. So I'm giving it a good press, making good contact with that paper, because our watercolor paper obviously has a little bit of a tooth, or it has some dimpling in it, so we want to make sure that we get good image. And I'm just going to see that we do not have enough ink on there, so I'm going to reapply. And because our stamps stay in one position and our cardstock stays in the other same position, that is the beauty of the Misty. We're going to stamp it right in that same place once again. There we go. I think we're a little better. I'm going to take our cardstock out, and it'll remain not so wet on this paper, so I'm actually going to take this to our embossing powder right away. I'm going to use a piece of copy paper here, and we're going to sprinkle our powder all over the areas of where we included our stamps. Now we have, because this is a die cut, it actually sort of embossed our image. So I have a little bit here that didn't pick up any ink, but you know what? I'm okay with that. Card making is all about the process and having fun and sending well wishes and things like that to your friends. And you know what? If they're not perfect, it's okay, because nothing's perfect. So, in my mind, the fact that you made that for somebody special, that it has, you know, a few grains of powder missing, no biggie. So I'm just taking a a dry paintbrush here, and I'm just using it to brush off any stray ones that are really obvious. Okay, we're going to take our scrap paper, funnel it back into our container. Word to the wise, always put the cap back, even if you're going to go back in again. Don't ask how I know that. Okay, now that the powder's on, we're going to actually go to our secondary panel, which is this pretty little purple panel. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to put it in, we're going to stamp it with Versamark, going to add our gold embossing, and then I'm going to heat emboss it, and I'll be right back and show you our next step. Alright, we've got our two identical panels all ready to go. They have been heat embossed, so the powder is all stuck down. Aren't they pretty? Now you could use completely different embossing powders on either side. You could have used a white on this and a black on this. Basically, we're looking for contrast, and I'm going to use contrast in the sense of we're going to color the watercolor, and we're going to use just the gold embossing on the purple side. But we still have to do the remainder of our embossing on this side. So I'm going to put it in the Misty, and we're going to rearrange our stamps again. Okay, this time in my Misty, I'm just going to flip it around. We're going to use our creative corners to help hold the cardstock out from the corner a little bit. It just helps you get things around the corners on the outer edges. We're going to put on, start with our larger flower, which is our zinnia, and we want to put as much of that bloom as we can on there, but not to cross over at all. And of course you can play with position, and we've got our bee balm. It needs to be positioned in the corner. And finally the third piece, which is our gorgeous coreopsis. And we're going to, I think we'll go straight on here. Basically, the idea is to kind of come in as close, because we're going to actually cut out the center of this card once we're all done here. So we're going to pick up our stamps. They're all ready to go. We're going to use our Versamark ink once again. Ink up those stamps generously. Now, the nice thing about dark cardstock and Versamark ink, or darker anyway, that you can actually see the ink a lot better. And I'm going to go one more time just to save my butt. Ink up. Pressing that on. I'm going to add my powder and heat set it, and I'm going to do the same exact thing to our watercolor panel, and I'll come right back and then we'll go on to the next step. So now we're going to take the watercolor emboss piece and we're going to color it up with my Fine Tech pearlescent colors. I've made my own kind of color sort of similar to this to kind of make things cohesive, using some of this color here. I'll have the name up on the screen for you. This color here, a little bit of this, and a touch of this. So I'll have those colors up there for you so that you can see what I've mixed. And I'm going to put on some music and we're going to color this fella up. So enjoy, and I'll be back in a few minutes. go. We have a gorgeously glittery card front. Now, the beauty of this technique is that because cardstock is generally very, very thin, it's very, very easy to do this next step. I have, however, found that there's a little bit of a trick to this. So first of all, you want to make sure they're the right way up. So both of the identical versions are right on top of one another. Then you're going to take a little piece of washi tape or post-it note tape. And you're just going to lightly kind of tack these two kind of together. It just holds the corners together, if it's going to stay, of course. It just kind of keeps them together, because next you're going to put them in your die cut machine. So I'm going to die cut this Hi Friend panel out of the center, and I'm going to use the same set that I used initially to cut out my outside. And what I really want is I want a little bit of whatever's kind of around it to be within that frame. It just makes the look of this that much cooler. Again, I'm just going to use a low tack tape. This is post-it note tape. I'm going to make sure my die is where I want it. And because we have that secondary piece underneath, it's going to be ornery for me today. What it's going to do is it's either going to cut all the way through, depending on your machine, or it's at least going to leave an impression. So I'm going to put this on my platform, and I'm going to put my cutting plate on. Sorry. I'm going to send it through. Now mine is shimmed, so it should cut all the way through both pieces of paper with one pass. Now, sadly enough, I have got ink on this. It must be from my plate. So this is just it's actually a adhesive eraser, but it works really well on a textured surface. I'm going to carefully remove my pieces that are holding my die down. Careful, careful, careful. And I'm also going to remove my helper pieces. If it sticks to the back, it's no biggie, because we're just going to mount it on a card base anyway. Before I do anything else, I've got more goopies on my, I swear to God. Okay. So let's check and see if it went all the way through. And it didn't, but that is completely okay, because it does have that impression from the die. So what you do is you put that die, and it should be grooved enough that you can sit it in exactly the same spot. It just kind of sinks into that paper. So you just do that just to hold it in place, and then send it through your machine, and that one will be cut as well. And the beauty of die cutting, there we go. Okay, now we've got some more magic to create. Set my die aside. Now you need a really good trimmer for this part. And let's start, I think, with these two. And we are going to cut these two into 4 pieces. and they're going to be 4 equal pieces. So this one, using my measuring, is basically 3.5. Okay, so I'm going to cut it at 1 3/4. Now, your piece, you're going to do whatever the half is, the halfway point is on your particular shape. And 1 smooth cut, keeping those 2 pieces. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the other piece. Same direction and everything. So 1 3/4 for my particular fella. Okay, now we've got to take those, each of these, and cut them into half. So taking our measurement is 2 1/4, so 1 1/8. Just gonna double check, and that is indeed half. And because they are equal rectangle pieces, it's going to be exactly the same cut of 1 1/4, or sorry, 1 1/8 for all of those pieces. Keep them together. Don't let them get lost on your desk. Okay, and one final piece. Okay. So I'm going to set my 8 pieces aside. They're all cut. And we're going to go on to basically the frames. Okay. So once again, we're going to cut these into 4 equal pieces. And I know that each is exactly the same as an A2 front card. So this is 5.5, so we got to find the half of that, and 4 1/4. So half of 5.5 is 2 3/4. I'm just going to carefully, now because there's a gap, be careful. You want to make sure that you've got a good grasp on your pieces. Okay, like such. Do our purple piece. 2 3/4. I'm just putting pressure on my ruler just to hold that down. And again, we're going to do halvesies the other way. So it's 4 1/4, so it'll be 2 1/8 is half. And 2 1/8. And this is where the fun begins. So we're going to kind of make a mismatchy card. So we're going to start with, I guess, our bee balm in the one corner. Now we want to make one complete card front. So let's just randomly put this back together so we know where all the pieces come from. They don't have to be exact, but we just want to know. Okay. So then we'll switch out opposites. So let's switch out the bee balms for the bee balms on the purple. So this one matches this one. And we'll just set that one above. And this one, of course, matches this one. So it takes its place. And then, of course, you'll have 2 purple pieces left. And you want to match them up to create that secondary card. So you're going to do the exact same thing with the title or your sentiment. Okay, so whatever the opposite to this is and this, that's what you have to put in. So it's just like creating a puzzle. So you now have 2 basic card designs because you now have 2 card fronts. And you're going to basically piece things together. So it looks as if I have cut things wrong, but you know what? It's the way it goes, baby. So what you can do, and you know what? This always happens to me when I do videos, I swear to goodness. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my card base and I'm going to put all my outer pieces on and stick them down first. And then I'm going to take all my inner pieces and I'm going to actually back them and put them all together on one sheet. And we'll see how it looks. The best thing to do is to take that same die and die cut for a backer for the center, and then use your card base as the base for your card. So I've got a side folding A2 card here. And we're just going to apply adhesive basically kind of around the outer inch or so. Okay, I'm going to put one corner in first. Make sure you line up your edges. There we go, and then just build around. Now you can see that my cutting, it did not go together, but that's okay. So I'm just going to cut a scrap piece of cardstock as a backer. I always keep my scraps of white cardstock just for this purpose. You'll cut a base piece and all of our sentiment stuff will stick to it. And we'll find out just how improperly I have cut this. It doesn't look too bad, actually. It's a lot better than I thought. Okay, I am going to have to trim my card base, but that's okay. And just to add a little bit of dimension, I'm going to actually put this up on some foam tape, so it kind of sticks up and stands out. So once again, you're going to line up all of your design, trying to hide any of the imperfections underneath, because obviously this doesn't jive, and that's okay. All right. I think on my secondary one, I'm going to put a little mat to hide some of my boo-boo, because apparently you have to pay more attention, don't you? But I'm glad I made some boo-boos so that you, of course, don't make any boo-boos on your card. And I'll be back to show you the final second card. But before I do that, I wanted to show you a few other concepts that you can do with this technique of Yin Yang. So this is the card we just made. And then I took our Tree of Life stamp, and I used a black piece of cardstock and a bright green cardstock, and I used some black embossing powder and some lettuce colored embossing powder. Now it's really wild because it's almost Halloween-y iridescent. But you know what? It's all about the technique and seeing how things work. It's a little bit overwhelming in the design, but you know what? It's fun and whimsical. And what I did was I took a series of circle dies and cut specifically certain parts of the tree. Now, once again, I did the layering technique, so I got the impression so that circle die would always fit in to the other piece of paper, so I could cut it in exactly the same shape. So it was just a matter of puzzle piecing them together and getting the bird wings in the bird wing spots and the pomegranates in their correct spots. So you can have fun with different shapes and try different colors. It is kind of dramatic. It's kind of cool. You know, it's not particularly one I like, but you know, hey, it's all about experimentation, right? And I also have a secondary set for you. And for this one, I did a light gray panel and of kind of a light sea glass color. And I did very minimal coloring to my gray layer. It's just very, very small hint of Copic coloring just to shade my grays. That's it. And the only difference is that I did my sentiment in black and both. Just because if I did it in the light blue on the gray, it really wouldn't have shown up very well. So I used the black ink on that, but I did exactly the same process. So I made 2 complete panels that were identical. I cut out my keyhole shape, label shape first, and then I cut out my triple circle, which is all one die. And then I just mismatched all the pieces, and these ones are kind of funky because it's a different shape, and I'm kind of happy with the way these ones turned out. So what do you think? Alrighty, thanks for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the process, and I hope you get a chance to try it yourself. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great day, guys.